I've dedicated my life and my career to helping veterans like myself who are disabled get the benefits that they were promised when they enlisted, that they earned through their service, now deserve because of their disability. I have one client in a very extreme circumstance, I'm not saying this is ordinary,
Right.
whose claim had been pending for so long and had been denied so often that almost $500,000 in retroactive benefits have been accruing for him before we finally got it granted and paid out. This not only just benefits you, but it benefits your family. Do you love them enough to go through this process? Do you love yourself enough? I didn't think I was that disabled. And many veterans do this. They don't want to admit to themselves or their families that they have a problem. The first step is always going to be, quite honestly, a come to Jesus moment, as it were, and just admit, yeah, I've got some stuff wrong.
Each financial decision is not in a silo by itself. It has to be looked at and how it relates to something else in your plan. And most people are not looking at the big picture.
This is John Smallwood, and we are back on Money Isn't. And today we're going to be diving into, I think, one of the most important conversations, which is the veteran population and how many people miss the benefits that they are rightfully entitled to. I have a very special guest, good friend of mine, Todd Wesche. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Really glad to have you. Now, before we jump in, if you're a veteran or you know a veteran, there's a lot of people that are not getting benefits. And I want to, you're a veteran from the Air Force.
Yes.
You did not serve in combat, but you were disabled by events that occurred during, and you call this a CONUS duty. What does that mean, CONUS?
CONUS is basically continental United States, which means that everything happened when I was here in the United States. I was not deployed overseas.
Okay. You're an attorney, and you specialize in getting veterans disability benefits that they're entitled to. That is your sole specialty.
That is our specialty, yes.
Yeah. Now you have a master's degree from George Washington.
That I do.
And what is this? What is it specifically in? Because it was beautiful when I read it. Like I didn't realize this, and I was blown away by it.
It's a master's degree. It's called a Master's in Litigation and Dispute Resolution, called an LLM.
An LLM. Okay, that it is. So you are extremely qualified. Now, you were disabled for 20 years. You were suffering from a disability for 20 years. You're in this specialty, and you can't even get yourself benefits.
That's correct.
Because you felt you were a little too close to it.
Well, I thought I was a little too close to it, but I also, like many veterans, didn't think I was that bad off. I didn't think I was that disabled. I had come up with this, and many veterans do this in my experience. I hear this story all the time, where they don't want to admit to themselves or their families that they have a problem of any kind, whether it be toenail fungus to traumatic brain injuries or PTSD or anything in between. They want to struggle through, they want to be productive members of society. They don't want to feel like they're a burden on anybody, including the government or their family or anybody else. And so they just struggle through and they suffer through, and they don't get the help that they could get otherwise.
And it's kind of like that rugged individual. Like you are a veteran. You've been trained. Like, okay,
yes,
like I'm tough. I'm tough. I don't need this.
In fact, during basic training, one of the things that every veteran I've talked to says is that they were taught to suck it up, buttercup. You get an injury, you get a boo-boo. You go to sick call and it's a boo-boo camp. Oh, poor baby, you went to boo-boo camp.
And then you get shit for it. And then you get a ton of crap for it when you come back out of that camp.
Yeah. So it's better to show I'm a man or I'm a strong woman and I can take care of this. And I don't have to go to sick call. I don't have to get my disabilities documented. I don't have to pretend that I'm okay. I have to pretend that I'm okay, because if I don't, I'm going to catch shit for it. And that struggles on through their entire life because it's so deeply ingrained as part of their core mission, who they are, who they become as a member of a team, a member of a group, as opposed to being an individual before they join the military. And so they have this group mindset, support the group mission at all costs.
And my mentor, my platoon sergeant or whatever it is, isn't collecting benefits and he's more disabled than I am. So why should I?
Correct.
Yeah.
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 You can always see somebody who's more disabled than you are.
Yeah.
You see the people in wheelchairs with amputees or people who are clearly psychologically disabled. And you're like, I'm not that person. I'm not that bad. So I'll let them have the benefits. I don't need them. I'm not that bad.
And it's not like there's a finite amount of benefits. There's actually, the door is wide open.
The door is wide open. Up to the
open.
amount of congressional appropriations, of course, but pretty much wide open.
Pretty much wide open. Now, you had sent me some stuff in advance, and I dug into some of the, the veteran population, and a lot of the little stats that I thought were like overwhelming to me. And this is my father-in-law lied about his age and joined the Navy in World War II. He was basically younger. He was 16 and he lied about his age. He actually had two cards. He had his veteran card and he had his, Social Security card. They were two different dates of birth and the whole thing. Like, it was crazy, right? The sacrifices that people have made for what we stand for in our country, without our veterans, without the proper protection, we as a country would not have what we have. And I don't think people really value it as much as we should. And like, I'm looking at this and saying, the stat that jumped out to me is in 2023, there was 18.3 million veterans in the United States, projected to decline to 11.9, because a lot of those are World War II. A lot of those are Korean War. A lot of those are Vietnam War, and they're in their 70s. Like, it's there, right? But what I thought was really interesting is the female population is growing even faster. It's actually growing, where the male population, because females weren't in the Army, but they have the same issues, probably
Correct.
Different. And what took me out as of June 30th, 2024, of the 18 million, or actually like 20 something million when you add the females in, only 5.9 million people are collecting benefits, disability benefits, according to the stat that came out of NCVAS pocket cards, the National Center for Veterans Analysis and Stats, as of June 30th. And I see it from the wealth management side that so many people are in need of, even if it's a partial disability, like they need assistance. They need, the Vietnam veterans are not getting benefits and they're paying for nursing homes and they're paying for things that they should not, they're missing so much opportunity and they're destroying their wealth and their family's wealth. And I think this is, yes. When we first met, and we met at a supra-human event, and we are supra as a result of it. I mean, you've dropped a tremendous amount of weight, right? Like
40 pounds, yes.
40 pounds in what time frame?
Since January through roughly the beginning of August.
Yeah. So, and then, like that journey, like we both joined, we're both in there. I'm about 18 months into the program. I'm down about 40, 45, 46 pounds and, net and back up again from a muscle perspective. But we had a conversation that I believe we were out in Scottsdale. It was in Scottsdale. And we were talking about your journey and your frustration and that whole thing, and that so many people in the population are just not getting better. They're not getting the services. They're not taking advantage of these things. And there's sort of like a roadblock that you really mentioned to me that really, like, you hit walls very quickly in the system.
Yes. There are a lot of walls. Some of them are self-imposed, as I mentioned earlier, the suck it up buttercup mentality.
Yeah.
Some of them are institutional, the complicated VA system. Veterans generally know that there are benefits they could get, but they don't know how to get them. They don't know how to take that first step. They have preconceived notions or bad rumors or just hearsay about what it takes to win a case. And a lot of those are just bad information, quite honestly. And then other parts of it are they don't realize what could be available to them. They understand basic healthcare benefits you can get from the VA system. They understand that there's this thing called compensation benefits out there. But there's a lot of things that people tell themselves, a lot of stories, a lot of rumors about what you have to do to get those benefits, and they can be overwhelming. In fact, I have a whole list of things that people think that I've heard people say over the years.
Share that list. I'd love to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a whole list of like A to P here. I'm not that bad. I'm just going to get denied anyway. Something they hear from the Social Security Administration where they're always going to deny the first time around.
Yeah.
You need to have an honorable discharge, which is not true. You can have less than honorable discharge. I can't get benefits if I'm working or if I'm gainfully employed. I had to serve in combat to qualify. I have to be severely disabled. VA benefits cancel out other federal benefits, which is not true in most circumstances. If I use the services, other veterans who are more disabled than I am won't be able to get it because I'm using their benefits. It's too late to file a claim. Too many years have passed. Widows and survivors aren't eligible. VA compensation benefits will reduce my retirement benefits from the military. It'll be an offset against Social Security. I can't afford to buy the medical evidence I need to win my case. My missions were all classified, so I don't have any proof that they ever occurred. Things like that.
So these are just all of these. All these are untrue.
All of them are untrue.
And that's really like a mindset. Like we've been programmed or conditioned to have that kind of thinking because of, a lot of people, we were talking about like your first time somebody goes in and they enter a claim and the process is typically like a rejection, you get defeated and you're like, see, I wasn't going to get it. And you go back to what you were doing.
A self-enforcing prophecy.
So
self-fulfilling prophecy. There we go.
You mentioned to me compensation benefits. I just want to define, let's just talk about the types of benefits that people can receive.
Sure. There are a ton of benefits. Some of them are from the VA directly, and some of them are at state and local levels. And some of them are not VA, but federal benefits. So I'll talk generally about the VA system first. We can talk about some of those other ancillary benefits as well. There are three primary types of benefits that the Department of Veterans Affairs offers veterans who are, they could be service disabled, they may not be service disabled, but if they're a veteran, they should be eligible for some or all of these benefits. The first one is what we call disability compensation benefits, which are only just called compensation. That is a monthly cash payment that the VA gives you because of your service-connected disability, which means that you had a disability caused by your military service and you still have that disability today. And so that can be rated between 0% disabling and 100% disabling. The higher your disability is, the higher amount of money or the more money you get from the VA system monthly payments. So for example, if you're 0% disabled, you get nothing from VA. Okay. If you're 10%, it could be like $170 a month. If you're 100% disabled, it could be, I think right now it's about just a little bit shy of $3,800 a month, tax-free.
Tax-free.
And that lasts for your entire lifetime. That's as long as you're that level of disability. So if you're 100%, you get 100% payment every month for the rest of your life.
What are some examples of disability that people experience? Like something that might be a 50% or a 20% that you've seen in your experience?
So a typical back disability, like a lumbar spine disability in the lower back, 20%. Yeah. Sleep apnea can be 50%. Migraine headaches can be 30 or 50%. Cardiovascular disease can get you all the way up to 100% in certain circumstances. Psychiatric conditions, be it minor, like regular ordinary depression to PTSD, schizophrenia, can go from 0% to 100%. Oh, wow. You can even get disability compensation for toenail fungus. There's literally any disability that you can prove was caused by VA. And disability not necessarily meaning amputated arm. Of course, that would count also. Sure, but yes. It can be things that would be more innocuous, like a skin rash that's persistent, or hearing loss, which is very common, or tinnitus, the ringing in your ears.
The ringing, which drives people. Yeah. I mean, that's a really difficult thing, a really difficult
Right.
thing.
Um, in one case, just by way of example, you can have disabilities compounding on each other also. So by way of example, for tinnitus, if you can prove that tinnitus was caused by explosions or gunshots or artillery or things like that, or anything caused by service, and that tinnitus then causes something else, such as severe depression, because you just can't hear very well. The depression wasn't directly caused by service, but it was caused by the tinnitus that was caused by service. And therefore, you can also get a rating for the depression.
So you got depression, you got the tinnitus, and you might have the hearing at the same time, the three of them.
Right.
Yeah.
And it can continue to compound. So another great example would be veterans who were exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam or Korea in the later years. Those veterans have all kinds of disabilities from the dioxins and whatnot that were in the Agent Orange. They typically get conditions like diabetes mellitus. Well, diabetes is an insidious disease that causes retinopathies, neuropathies, all kinds of problems to your body systems because you can't control your blood sugar levels very well. And every one of those disabilities is secondary to that Agent Orange exposure. So even if you weren't disabled during service because you had that toxic exposure to the Agent Orange, that then caused disabilities, no matter how many years after the exposure, all those disabilities related to that toxic exposure can also be service connected, can then be rated, and then you can get payment for those.
Oh my God. So there's like literally probably thousands of different ways to be disabled. When you start thinking about even the combinations of one or two, like this might be a 10, but when you take a 10% disability and you combine it with a 20, you might actually be at 50. Because of
not quite like that. The math is a little more complicated than that.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that actually prohibits people from getting into the VA system is that the way disabilities are rated can be confusing. And when you combine disabilities together to come up with a rating, that can be confusing as well. In the VA system, by way of example, 10 plus 10 equals 19, not 20.
Okay.
But because VA rates everybody in 10% increments, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, et cetera, 10 plus 10 equals 19 rounds up to 20. So it looks like ordinary math and nobody really knows the difference. But once you get past 50, 50 plus 10 equals 55, which rounds up to 60. 60 plus 10 equals 64, which rounds down to 60. So even though you had a 60% rating and then you got another 10%, nothing changed.
But that would still be 60% of the 3,800, or let's just call it 4,000 benefit.
So it does, the math's different like that. It's not a percentage of the overall $3,800 that you would get for 100%. They're gradated or graduated. So the lower levels have slight level. The higher your disability is, the little bit more they tack onto it. So it's not just equal increments.
Okay, so it's not
There's a whole table out there that you can take a look at to see all that stuff.
Interesting. So people are basically many, many ways to be disabled. You could have tinnitus, you could have all these things, but you're now missing some percentage of that $3,800 monthly, tax-free, in perpetuity.
If you don't make the claim, yes, you're missing out on that money.
Yeah.
Right.
So
and the money is not designed to be an entitlement. And so it's not like you have to have worked so many hours like Social Security. It's not like you have to have put in a certain amount of time. You could have served the minimum amount of time, been disabled in the military, not even a full 4 years that most people think they have to do. You can do 1 year, you can do 6 months, you can do 3 months. If you're disabled during that period and then subsequently discharged because of that disability, then you're still entitled. And so you get that disability, let's say it is PTSD, then you make your claim and that PTSD is rated at 50%. That's roughly $1,500 a month, tax-free. And then you can go in and say, well, my PTSD caused this and caused that, and I had this and I had this other thing also. And that number can go up and go up and go up all the way to 100% eventually.
So somebody listening to this, somebody has a friend, somebody has somebody that they know, or it's them, and like, you know your friends and you know they have disabilities. They may not be like, what would be the first, like, what's the smart step? Like, okay, I'm a veteran. I have some sort of disability. I have something. How do I approach this? Like, what's my first step?
As the veteran, the first step is always going to be, quite honestly, a come to Jesus moment, as it were, and just admit, yeah, I've got some stuff wrong.
Okay.
Things are not functioning. Things are not the way they should be. For psychological conditions, most veterans have some degree of psychological condition if they have a disability. Let's just be honest. If you have a broken ankle or a disabled ankle from service, you're going to be a little depressed from that for the rest of your life because you can't do the things you ordinarily would want to do. Play football, basketball, play with your kids, run, hike. It's going to affect every part of your life, and you're going to be slightly depressed by that. Well, guess what? That ankle may have contributed to that depression. You can make a claim for depression also. So there's a lot that can happen here if you're just honest with what's going on in your body and in your mind.
Mm.
And if you can't be honest with yourself about this, there's no way you can make a full claim for everything that you might otherwise be entitled to.
So getting really honest with yourself and saying, I mean, for a lot of people, $1,500 a month, tax-free, $3,800 a month, tax-free is life-changing. It's life-changing. It's a life-changing event. And it's money that you're entitled to because you served and because you protected our country, because you are disabled in some format, this money's here. And I would think, like, if there's 18 million people that are veterans and there's only basically 5.9 million collecting, how much of that 18 point, that spread, how much of that 12 million or so are entitled to benefits that are not collecting it?
I have not found very many veterans who served a full 4 years or even a part of that didn't have something. And here's another funny thing, and I should have mentioned this earlier. Veterans often think that the disability had to have been incurred in the line of duty, meaning that it was related directly to their military service, their duty, their function in the military.
On the field.
Not true either.
Yeah.
That's not true. So by way of, and I hate to use this example, but it's a very clear example that makes it very clear. If a veteran was on leave, they were on vacation, and they were in New York City on 9/11, and they watched the towers fall, and they happened to be far enough away from the towers that they were not injured, but they saw the event happen, and they got PTSD from that. Because they were active duty military or on some kind of form of active status that would allow them to claim benefits otherwise, they were not AWOL. They were actually on duty normally. They just happened to be on vacation.
Right.
That still counts.
Wow.
Because it was during their active period of military service, even though it's not directly related to their duty in the military.
Witnessing something.
Yes.
But not actually, not actively involved in it, but actually, and that could be on the battlefield. That could be watching something. You could be sitting in a command center watching a video of something happen. Like, there's so many ways that could impact you.
Yeah. Either while you're doing your function, there's several cases out there where veterans who were now veterans, but military service at the time, they were flying the drones that were in Afghanistan, and they're actually deploying the artillery and the missiles from the drones and actually killing people, enemy combatants. And they got PTSD from operating the drones from Arizona.
Because of the killing of the people and the related things.
Correct. They witnessed it and they were part of it. They were combatants, just very remotely.
Yeah.
So it could be part of your duty, or it could be something unrelated directly to your duty, as long as you were on a qualifying period of service.
Wow.
So it's a very liberal system in that respect.
And so people, they go file a claim and they hit a wall. Is that when they should seek out counsel? I
think they should seek out some advice from a VA accredited representative of some kind, or the VA directly, to the extent that VA is willing to actually give them some help. The VA has a duty to assist veterans in their claims. Okay. So asking VA to help them is a good thing to do. But quite typically, the veterans are going to run into the roadblock just even filing the right form. Because there's multiple forms they could file depending on how far they are in the process, whether they've had prior claims that have been granted or denied previously, what they're trying to do with those claims, whether they're filing the claim for the very first time, meaning the very first time they've sought benefits for PTSD, let's say, Or 20 years after their first claim, they've already been granted, and now they're looking to get an increase because their PTSD has gotten worse over time. They can go in and seek a higher level of benefits later in the future. But if they use the wrong form, VA is going to deny them. Quite literally, form over substance.
Oh, you see that so many freaking things. Oh, you use the wrong form. You're denied.
Use the wrong form. Other parts are VA doesn't necessarily tell you what you need. They're supposed to tell you what you need, but they tell you in very oblique terms. You need evidence that's going to show that things have gotten worse. Well, what does that really mean? I think I've gotten worse, but worse compared to what standard? Well, there's this legal standard over here that VA doesn't tell you about, that they're applying. So unless you know how to find that standard, unless you know how to go research that and apply it to your facts, roadblock.
So your team is actually helping people understand that.
Absolutely.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting.
And then once you get denied, how do you appeal? If you get denied. If you get granted, awesome. But did you get granted everything you're supposed to get? Because VA can grant in part. You should have gotten 70%, but you only got 50%.
How much of that goes on? How much of the claims do you think that happens?
I've built a business around things.
From your experience. Now, you've helped a lot of veterans too, right? How many have you helped?
Thousands.
Yeah.
I don't have an exact count, but thousands.
Yeah. And it's thousands. And how many people didn't pull every benefit out? I would think it would be a massive percentage of that.
Massive percentage.
Yeah, like wrong form. You didn't ask for enough. You didn't realize that the ringing in your ear or your slight hearing loss or your bum ankle was actually a qualifying disability.
And part of it is the veteran didn't know what to claim. They didn't know how to claim it. And if they did claim it, they didn't know how to support it. And if they did know how to support it, they didn't support it with everything VA wanted. And if they support everything VA wanted, the VA is still filled with humans that make mistakes in an overburdened system with 8 million people who are trying to do their thing with the VA. And it's just, or I was actually 5.9 million in the VA system right now, 18.25 million vets in the system or in the world. All of them are applying, and especially more recently when they enacted the PACT Act, the PACT PACT Act.
Yeah.
That actually liberalized some of the standards for veterans that had toxic exposures like Agent Orange or the Camp Lejeune contaminated water or the AFFF firefighting foam.
No, right.
Forever chemicals, things like that. These kinds of exposures can cause all kinds of long-term disabilities as well. And the VA made it more, or the Congress through the VA made those claims more liberal and said there was a huge influx of people making claims which backlogged the system. So on top of all these other roadblocks, you've got it takes forever to get a claim adjudicated on top of all that.
And then I would think like the Camp Lejeune thing, you see the ads all over the place. Mm-hmm. That's a lawsuit. That's not a disability claim.
There's two different parts of that actually. One of which is the lawsuit, which was filed in North Carolina, which is an individual lawsuit against the federal government for contamination and the disabilities caused by that contamination for not just veterans, but their family members, including family members who are in vitro or in the womb when they were exposed. So it's a very liberal lawsuit that allows people to make claims against the government for their individual disabilities. That's different than the VA system. In the VA system, it allows for people to continue to make claims for that toxic exposure related to those disabilities. So you can do both, actually. You can file in the lawsuit and in the VA.
Which would be very, for people that are exposed to that and the families that were exposed in all those aspects. I mean, that's such a valuable thing. And you may not believe that you were capable of or claiming either one of those.
Correct.
It's interesting. So I get a road, and what you're saying is even if you're claiming, like you told me something about there's a certain services that can and cannot, like you cannot charge, like there's a whole thing that you can't do as an attorney with a veteran up front as far as charging and compensation up front.
And that's another roadblock, quite honestly.
Yeah, because it's pretty significant.
Imagine if you were that you had to sue your landlord because a landlord retained your deposit and they shouldn't have.
Okay.
And you go to an attorney and the attorney says, I would love to help you, but I'm not allowed to charge you until you lose your lawsuit. Then I can help you on the appeal. So good luck doing it all on your own. I can't help you because I can't get paid for it. That is the VA system as it relates to attorneys and non-attorney agents who are also allowed to practice. So you come to me as an attorney, and as much as I want to help you, there is a certain business aspect to this, is I can't help everybody who walks through the door for free, because then I go out of business and I just can't help you. I didn't know. But there are other services out there, veteran service organizations, we call VSO, such as American Legion, Military Order of the Purple Heart, Disabled American Veterans. Those organizations can help veterans for free. And in fact, they're not allowed to charge for their services. So there is a way to get help at that initial claim, but you're not going to get it from an attorney unless the attorney wants to give you free services.
Wow. So a lot of roadblocks.
A lot of roadblocks.
Which is really annoying. Like, to me, there should just be, okay, I go to the VA, I get all my tests done. Here's all my tests. Here's what your benefit is. And let me take care of you because you helped us remain this fabulous free country that we have.
And in all candor, and the VA system is designed to not require assistance. I think in practice, though, that's a lofty, unmet goal. VA has what's called the duty to assist I mentioned earlier, where they're supposed to help veterans obtain the evidence that they need to win their case, obtain their service records from the DoD, Department of Defense, to advise them on what's necessary to win their case, give them proper instructions on which forms to file and things like that. But when push comes to shove, there's still a lot of appeals.
I'm now you have my brain like just going in multiple angles. Okay. Out of the 5.9 people that are actually like getting benefits, even yourself, like, have you appealed your current claim? Do people, how much of those get appealed? And when they appeal, that's a whole set of other roadblocks.
Well, it's even worse than that. So in my own claim, remember, I had been disabled for 20 years before I made my first claim, and I made my first claim 10 years into actually practicing this area of law. So even myself, had those own internal roadblocks. I wasn't that bad off, but I knew the system. I'd been helping other veterans get through the system successfully for many years at that point.
Right.
My claim was denied the first time through, and I had to appeal. So even people who know what they're doing still get denials. People who I still think that I did everything correctly got denied. So there's this incredible level of frustration that happens when you do everything you're asked to do, you do it exactly correctly, and VA still says no. And you're forced to go through the appeal system.
It sounds like it needs like a major overhaul.
And recently it was overhauled, actually, and it still has some issues. It's better, but it still has issues. So with all that in mind, it gets even more complicated, because what everybody considers to be a claim, sheet of paper, list of disabilities on it, submit it to VA, I want my money. Right. VA looks at that and says, you put down 5 disabilities, you have 5 different claims. Each disability is adjudicated as a separate claim. They can be granted or denied separately. They can be granted in part and denied in part, all separately. So you might think you're entitled to 70% for your PTSD, and VA only gives you 50%. So it's a grant to 50%, but a denial to 70%, which means you lost the money between the 50 and the 70. And you have to appeal to get the 70. Yeah. And then on the same decision, they denied tinnitus, and they granted in whole diabetes mellitus, and they granted in part an ankle disability. And so some things you have to appeal up, and some things you're happy with because you got a full grant, and some things you didn't get a full grant, and some things you got a full denial on. And each of those denials and partial denials can be adjudicated through 3 different paths to higher level adjudications. So you have to be able to understand the benefits and cons of which appeal path you're going to take and which claim that's denied in whole or in part to which path. which means your claims basically spider web out in multiple directions. And you've got to be able to keep track of all those things.
Yeah. And like the average person can't even keep track of their checkbook.
Correct.
Like, how are you going to, so when somebody uses services like yours, whether it's your firm or any other firm, you're actually, how do you guys, like, this is something that I think people are afraid is going to cost too much money to get their claims. How do good attorneys get compensated in this?
They can be compensated in a number of ways. The law authorizes multiple ways of doing it, but they all are regulated by law. We can't just free willy our compensation schemes. Ordinarily, most veterans advocates will do it on a contingency basis, meaning we only get paid if we win, kind of like the lawsuit advertisements you see on TV all the time.
Yeah.
We only get paid if we win. But I should say, if we win, we'd take our compensation would be, I can't talk. Let's try this again. If we win, we would charge a fee up to 1/3 of any past due and accrued benefits that you get as a result of our efforts, which means if you get a retroactive check from the denial retroactively to the date of the grant, or from the date of the claim to the date of the grant, and let's just say it's $30,000, and if we charged up to 1/3, our fee would be $10,000, and the veteran would keep the other $20,000. And then the veteran would also be able to keep all their monthly benefits that get paid out after that for the rest of their life.
Hands off the future benefits. I mean, think about it. That's a lump sum of $20,000 tax-free, and then in perpetuity, whatever that is, and you had somebody help you navigate through that process and potentially got you more benefits. Yeah, and you all that spider web of stuff that you were just, people from the wealth management standpoint, it's sort of like you start thinking about checkbooks and credit cards and 401ks and this and that and pensions and disability benefits and Medicare and blah, you start, and everyone's like, I don't even want to talk about this. The disability claim, like I might be working, you're a practicing attorney at the time that you're a specialist in this. It's now your own situation and it's like you're getting denied. So like, it's going to now distract you from what you're doing.
Correct.
And it's going to take you down a rabbit hole. Like, I know we always learn a lot from everything. Like any roadblock that actually comes up, we learn a ton from, but it's like, even an expert gets the short end of the stick in this thing. And it's like, how many people give up? And I know we're saying the same thing, but I'm just floored by this because I see it from the wealth management standpoint. We started asking people a few years ago, like I wasn't even thinking about it, right? Are you a veteran? Are you collecting disability benefits? Are you entitled? And now it's like a question that my awareness is even greater today than it was, I think we met in May or April, whatever it was. And I was blown away by that conversation. And then I was like, I don't think from the wealth management side, we're approaching this properly. Because I see people going into nursing homes. I see people not having enough money in retirement. They're spending down assets. And they're great people who serve our country. And they might have served for 4 years or 5 years. They might have been a Vietnam tour. They might have been in Korea. World War II, there's becoming less and less of them because of aging out, basically. I mean, they're hitting their 80s and 90s, right? But it's so much missed opportunity in their plans. Like we talk about opportunity cost, right? And meaning, if I pay more money in taxes than I'm supposed to on the additional money that I paid, I'm not only losing the money, I'm losing the future value of what that money could be. You think about a claim, like I didn't get my back claim. It could be 10 years that I'm entitled to, right? Because I've been disabled for a long time.
Depends on a lot of different legal factors, but yeah, there's potentialities. I have one client that in a very extreme circumstance, I'm not saying this is ordinary, so take this as the extreme that it is,
right?
Whose claim had been pending for so long and had been denied so often that almost $500,000 in retroactive benefits have been accruing for him before we finally got it granted for him and paid out.
Holy cow.
$500,000.
$500,000. So think tax-free. 1/3 is yours, the rest is his, and then all those future benefits, the opportunity cost on that money is life-changing. That's life-changing.
Most people won't see big numbers like that.
No.
But if you look at it not from the retroactive perspective, which is where we get paid from, but just on the monthly amount of money that you get, 100% is $3,800 a month roughly, and it goes up every year with cost of living adjustments. So it's not a static number. So whatever you get will help to keep pace with inflation over time. And you can use that money for anything. There are no limits. There's no restriction on how to use that money once it's in your pocket.
You can use
So
it
you
for
can
whatever
use
you
it to
want.
fund your retirement. You can use it to invest in your 401k or your IRA. You can use it to pay down your mortgage. You can use it to invest in a business. You can use it to go on vacation. You can use it
Give it to
any
your
way
kids
you want.
for your grandkids for college, whatever.
Trust fund, exactly. Whatever you want to do with it.
I mean, think about, to me, it's almost like you want to take everybody that is active veteran, okay, the 18 million people, and figure out what claim have you not filed and what are you entitled to, and go after. I mean, there's so much money going to people that, I'm not going to get into political crap here, but it's like how much money is out there that's actually going places that doesn't have the merit that this has. To me, I come back to this. I never served, right? Desert Storm, I could have served in those things. I did not. I took a different path. But the amount of respect and the amount of, gratitude that I have for people that, their sacrifices allowed other people to have, to go build businesses and do things, right? Without the veteran, the person who protected us in moving forward, this becomes, historically is incredibly important. Moving forward, it's even more important. Yes. I mean, this is the greatest country in the world with the greatest people that, they always talk about what is it? The greatest generation, the World War II guys. I mean, that was on, like, you think about one move in a different direction and how the world could be different, right? I look at it and say, you have 18 million people disabled, 6 million people collecting. There's 12 million people that are suffering in some form or fashion. They have the possibility of doing something great with this other money, and they may feel defeated, and you get them the benefit. Now they feel fantastic, and now they can do other things. And who knows what they can do? Who knows what they can do? They might become an advocate for the VA system and help, 1,000 people in the next 10 years. Because I learned from Todd. I learned how to get this done. Let me be your advocate. Because I have all this money. Like, I don't even need to make money, but how many lives can I touch? It's incredible what you're doing.
And you mentioned the Gulf War. And that's one group of people, Gulf War all the way through Afghanistan withdrawal, and veterans on either side of that. It doesn't matter if you served in wartime conflicts or overseas or anything like that. You're a veteran, you can apply to the system for whatever your benefits can be. In fact, I love this. I didn't mention this earlier. Basketball injuries count. If you're playing basketball and you get injured, it doesn't matter. So, but the next big cohort of veterans is the group from Gulf War I through Afghanistan. And that group itself is gigantic.
It's a big
They're
number
also
of people.
my age and younger, generally speaking, mid-50s and younger, depending on when they enlisted. So this is the next great generation that's going to be going into the VA system. And some of these veterans are in their 30s and 40s, and they're at that point where I'm still good enough. I don't need to apply. But if they think about, they can start sucking that money away now for the rest of their life, they're going to have a much greater lifetime benefit out of the VA than people who are Korea, Vietnam, World War II, who are now kind of in their twilight years.
Yeah. So I see this Gulf War, total people that served 6,626,750, living is 6,427,000.
Which is about 1/3 of the total veteran population.
Yeah. The biggest one, this is, you think about the World War II guys, there were 7.6 million people served, only 274,000 are still here. Right. But even those people, the 274,000 have unfiled claims.
Yes.
And they're in, I remember my father-in-law, my father-in-law was hysterical, right? He was crazy in all forms and fashion, right? But he would say, when I get to the point, just take me to Menlo Park, New Jersey, and drop me off at the VA hospital in run like hell. They will take care of me. Just put me on the front step. I'd be like, what are you talking about? I can't do that, right? Like, no, he goes, I have all these services that I'm not taking advantage of. And now my head is like, how much money did he not collect that he needed in his lifetime that he should have had?
Right.
And he had like mesothelioma. He had all these things. Like he was trying to get all this stuff done. Like it's nuts. Even my grandfather was a merchant marine, and was bombed and all kinds of stuff. Like it was incredible.
Yeah. But we've been talking a lot about the compensation benefits here, which is the monthly cash payments again, but there's all these other benefits that kind of lead into some of the things you're just mentioning there, like the VA healthcare system,
Right.
where depending on how disabled you are from the compensation side, 0%, 10%, 50%, 100%, whatever that number might be, you might be eligible for free healthcare for any disability from the VA system, which means you can replace your private insurance and your private insurance premiums and copays with VA services, which again saves you that money over your lifetime.
Which is massive.
So if you have a major surgery.
Nursing home stuff too, right? Like nursing homes too.
Yeah, nursing home, end of life care, long-term care, all those stuff can be paid for by the VA in certain circumstances, yes.
I'm sure there's a list that we can put together of all those ancillary services that are getting missed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I know, I saw it. I was digging through the pile of stuff and I was like, oh my God, I saw something. Let me figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
I mentioned at the top a little bit about the state level benefits, not just the VA benefits. And one of the big benefits that I've noticed that has the biggest financial impact for most veterans is many states offer a partial or total property tax exemption for their primary residence.
Oh, really?
Really?
I know nothing about this.
So in New Jersey, has a 100% tax exemption for honorably discharged permanent and total veterans, permanent and total veterans, and their spouses or domestic partners in some circumstances, which means 100% of your property tax is waived on your primary home if you're 100% permanent and total disabled.
And New Jersey has some of the highest real estate taxes in the country.
Yep. New York has something similar. Connecticut has something similar as well. So the area around you.
That's incredible, Todd. Like that would be, and now how would, like, just out of curiosity now, I file a disability claim, this other benefit, how would I qualify for that? Which is actually in New Jersey might be equally as powerful, depending on where you live.
Right. So you'd have to get the rating from VA that shows that you're not only just 100% disabled, but permanently and totally disabled.
Okay.
What we call PNT, which is a kind of a special status. It doesn't give you any more money, but it's VA's way of saying you're so disabled that we don't think you're ever going to get better. You're permanently 100% / totally disabled.
Okay.
And in those circumstances, then you just take your VA letter. Most generally, you have to file an application form that the state requires, but you'd want to provide to them the VA letter or the VA decision that shows that you're 100% permanent and total, and then you're eligible, assuming you meet all the other requirements from the state.
Absolutely.
And the state would apply that and adjust your tax rates appropriately.
Wow.
Some states do it for partial disability, like New York's, if I remember correctly, provided a tax exemption equal to 1/2 the disability rating assigned by VA multiplied against the assessed value. So if you're 100% disabled, you get a 50% tax abatement.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And that's the things that we should be doing for people that did what they did and defended us.
Yes.
This is incredible. I am incredibly grateful to have this conversation because my brain is like, I know, I mean, if you look at there was a chart that I was going to put it up. I don't have it on the screen, but like this chart is where, and if you look at the chart, where the bulk of the people are the dark sections. So you got Florida, you've got New York, you've got Pennsylvania, you got Texas, you got California, New Jersey's got a lot, but it's not as big. I mean, there's a lot of property tax in all those states.
Yeah.
Just that in itself.
Right.
Unbelievable. As we near the end of this, what are some of the things that we didn't discuss that we should have?
I think the big thing that I would say for anybody who's going into the VA system and even thinking about doing this is, like I mentioned earlier, just be honest with yourself about how disabled you actually are.
Yeah.
It's a hard conversation to have, but it's an honest conversation. And the veteran is the only person who really knows what's going on inside himself or herself because they're the ones living with it.
Yeah. True.
Unfortunately, sometimes the veterans can delude themselves into thinking things aren't so bad. In those situations, it's really a good idea to bring in a spouse, a best friend, an adult child who can have that candid conversation with the veteran and say, hey, look, dad, hey, look, mom, you got some issues here. Let's see if we can get you some help for it. It's an adult, mature conversation to have.
Yeah.
The benefits don't just apply to the veteran, obviously, because if the veteran passes on, some surviving spouse benefits and family member benefits are available. And of course, whatever legacy that veteran leaves behind goes to wherever that veteran wants that legacy to go, perhaps to their family. So this actually is a mature conversation that spouses and adult children can have with dad and mom to say, hey, look, this not only just benefits you, but it benefits your family, can help your grandkids go to college. You can do those other things. Do you love them enough to go through this process? Do you love yourself enough to go through this process and get the help that you need? It's a very hard conversation to have, but it's an honest and necessary conversation to have. If not with yourself, then with your family.
Now, where are you licensed to practice? How many states?
I am licensed in Massachusetts, but because it's a federal practice, I can literally practice worldwide.
Oh, you can?
I can. I have clients all over the country and literally all over the world.
That is, okay. I didn't realize. That's incredible. Now, how do people reach you?
They can reach me through our phone number, which is 617-848-2999, or online at Vetus Legal, VETUS Legal, LEGAL.com.
And we'll have all this in the show notes and the links and stuff like that. But I urge you, if you are a veteran and you are not, even if you're part of the 5.9 collecting benefits, you should make sure that if you're collecting, you're getting what you're entitled to. 2, if you're not collecting, you should really explore your VA benefits, even, the property tax, the health insurance. I mean, the ripple effect. Like, you look at the average plan, the property tax is going out in New Jersey, let's say $9,000 a year. They're not getting the disability claim, even if it's partial. The healthcare, I mean, that would apply to Medicare and Medicare supplement also.
Mm-hmm.
So that would, instead of paying $400 or $500 a month, that's free if you qualify. And there's a myriad of other stuff. I mean, think about how much money you could save that's now going out, or how much more lifestyle or how much more investment you can make in yourself to fix yourself. Right? I mean, how many people don't actually get help to fix themselves from PTSD and all kinds of related things? They just don't do it because they don't have the money. There's all these benefits they could be receiving. The speed bumps.
Yeah, the speed bumps and the stigma.
Yeah.
A lot of people, and I should have mentioned this earlier, there's a stigma attached to being disabled.
Yes.
To a certain extent.
Yes. Badge of honor.
So, I think that many veterans who are delusional or deluded or lying to themselves or whatever you want to call it, they're doing that in the best of intentions. I don't think they're trying to lie to anybody.
They don't want to
They're
be
just
burdened.
live
They
the
don't want to
best
be
life
burdened.
that they can,
Yeah.
based on the situation they're in.
My father-in-law was a Purple Heart, guy. And I now I know, I mean, he's passed, but I know we missed tons of benefits that we could have taken advantage of and would have been really beneficial. What was that?
I was going to say, particularly in the healthcare system, veterans can actually get the medical treatment, the psychological treatment they need, including medications if warranted, for free to help them improve their quality of life, not just financially, but mentally and physically, which I think is equally important to the financial part, because who cares how rich you are if you can't enjoy it?
And that's, yeah. You're starting to see, people come out, Stephen A., the sports producer, the sportscaster guy, he's talking about it. And Michael Phelps is talking about it. And it's becoming less of a burden, becoming more mainstream to talk about these things. But I think I think people, when you do come clean with that, you do have issues or you have disabilities or you have, some sort of mental health disorder, and you find a way to become better with it, your life becomes so much better.
Yes.
And that's that's really, my purpose for having you on this podcast is, as soon as I heard what you were doing, I was like, we got to get this message out as much as I can. So, as always, I want everybody to like and share, but I really want you to share this with as many people as you possibly can. And I think this is something that, when we do it, we've got to get it through the communities that we're in, whether it's LinkedIn or it's, associations. I mean, this is something that I think people need. We know they need it. And I appreciate what you do. I mean, I did before, I thought it was pretty cool, but at the end of this conversation, it's incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anything you want to say before we cut and go to the editing tape here?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity. This has been a wonderful experience. Thank you so much for reaching out and making sure that this was a message we could get out to everybody. It is vitally important, I think. And I've dedicated my life and my career to helping veterans like myself who are disabled get the benefits that they were promised when they enlisted, that they earned through their service, and now deserve because of their disability.